for the founders that still don't have MVP. We are basically trying to brainstorm their idea and pickle the brain and lead them through a couple of weeks of brainstorming sessions where we're trying to visualize the idea. We're trying to get some early adopters, potential early adopters of their products, talk with them, validate the idea, validate the problem. And after a few weeks, basically, we call that program as a head start. We want them to give them basically better idea of what the product is going to look like. And if that is something that is going to be important for their users that they want to build a product for.
Welcome, everyone, to the Tech Business Roundtable podcast show. This is a podcast show dedicated to shining a spotlight on tech innovators, entrepreneurs, founders, and the compelling narratives behind the movements they've established. I'm your host, Ryan Davies, and I'm hosting today's discussion, From Concept to Scale, Unveiling the Art of MVP Transformation with Adi Behlulovic. How close? Better? Worse?
Nice.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
That was good, man.
He's given me some good lessons here. I feel like I'm we're old friends now going back. So
you're a fast learner, man.
Adi, thanks so much for joining us here today. I really appreciate it. This is going to be This is going to be a great episode. For our background on Adi, he's an entrepreneur by nature, decades of experience in constructing startup products. So what a perfect fit for our audience. And over the years, Adi's assumed various roles from software developer, business analyst, product manager, project manager, and founder at scaleup.ba. So ScaleUp, its primary focus revolves around collaboratively developing digital startup products with founders and partnering companies. But Adi really just embraces the role and the title of product creator. So from this vantage point, everything that we're talking about in our podcast today and really fits into our series so well is offering that unique perspective on the entrepreneurial landscape. And I think we're going to dive right into this here. Adi, I'll let you color up that background a little bit more for me, a little bit more about you, and really, what led you to establish ScaleUp with a focus on this collaborative development of digital startup products.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Rob, for the great intro and for learning my last name. So, yeah,
try to.
You did it awesome, man. Yeah,
thanks, appreciate you.
I think you covered the kind of the core, like the core that led to essentially establishing the ScaleUp, right? It was, and I think that diversification or kind of covering all of the roles in that product development cycle is actually the thing that led to the moment to find the ScaleUp. Like having that aspect of building the product from development role, then from project management role, then from product management role, then from business analyst role. Also had two of my own startups before founding ScaleUp, and then working as part of ScaleUp, working with different founders from different regions, different cultures, different languages, and everything, and working and building their products kind of gives the entire circle of kind of knowing what to do or what not to do, at least from that experience that I have. So all of those previous roles kind of led in and working with different IT tech companies, what led to the conclusion that there is a gap to fill in a way that business is conducted by tech companies with startups, with startup founders. What am I talking about? It's mainly like majority of the companies that I worked for and worked with in building startup products. The main issue was that they're trying to, like, the oldest concept is enterprise concept, right? Like oldest concept of IT tech companies is outsourcing. Like, okay, I'm going to give 3 developers to some enterprise client, and then they are going to have literally have the 3 developers on their own side. And when startups came along, and basically when startups started outsourcing their tech companies started implementing the same process that they have with enterprise companies to startups. And they said, like, okay, we are going to give you 2 front-end developers, 2 back-end developers, 1 UI UX designer. That is going to be this X amount of money every month. Sign the contract, and that's it. on paper, everything looks cool, right? Startup founder gets the team the same way that enterprise client gets the team. But the issue is that startup founder doesn't know what to do with that team, right? At that moment, like you suddenly have 5 people in your team, and it's similar that as you employed 5 people in your team. What to do now? Like, how do I manage them? What kind of tasks to give them? Who is going to teach me how to do the product development, how to do the design of the product? Because essentially, founder needs to give the tasks and everything to the developers. And nearly every tech company that I work for had that issue in kind of educating founders in a way how to lead the team, how to lead the product, and everything. So when I started Scale Up back in 2019, my sole or my main purpose was to fill that gap, to kind of offer startup founders truly the experience of building the product, in building the product and teaching them along the way. So basically, we are kind of trying to be one-stop shop, everything tech related. Like founders have me on WhatsApp, on Viber. They are calling me anything that they need. Basically, I'm their shop. Like Scale Up is there. We are doing the monetization strategy with startup founders. We are doing the financial advising. We are doing business strategy advising. We are doing animations. We are doing marketing as well. So we are trying kind of to do all of these things surrounding startups, assisting them and taking that burden off their back, while keeping the main core focus on tech. Obviously, software development, this is our core. But we are trying truly to be really like partner to them, and kind of like Scale Up, we need this, Scale Up, we need that, etc., to cover everything. So that is that key differentiator, what we are trying to achieve. And so far we are achieving that with all of the startup founders that we are working with.
I love that. That's amazing. I think, that really shows that growth and that ability that you can finally, you said, that one-stop shop to kind of get an answer in a direction that is so desperately needed by so many founders, right? Be able to figure out, where do I go next, or what do I do? And I think maybe that comes into that, what is the impact of what I'm doing on each of those, right? Or how do I showcase it in some cases? So, you mentioned, you prefer the title of product creators over CEO. But I think that's really great of how we can see here your perspective as a product creator is influencing the approach to this development of digital products, particularly in the concept of MVPs. And maybe you could speak to that a little bit more about, how some of these decision making and things what goes into an MVP, and what, how this development affects, again, maybe your marketing strategy, or maybe your position or your finance, anything along those lines, but sort of that role of a product creator in an MVP.
Yeah, for sure. Like in a sense, I think I discussed with someone lately that the marketing and branding, like every startup founder that we are talking with as a Scale Up, a lot of them they have the goal of product development, and then they are saying, okay, after that I'm going to focus on marketing, after that I'm going to focus on branding, etc. But the reality is that the moment that you start talking about your idea, either consciously or unconsciously, you already started with branding of your product. Like if you, Ryan, is telling me about your idea, in a way you're already branding it in a way that you're going to explain me your idea. So essentially that branding and marketing really starts from the moment that you decide to pursue your idea and to turn it into actual product. It's not a bad thing, or it's not something to stress about, but it's important to understand that. So at the point where you need to formalize your branding or your marketing, you need to take a look back and see basically what was the progress of your product. And basically at that point, you need to compel that storytelling and story of your product and incorporate that into branding and marketing, because it's already there. You just need to formalize it in a bit, or structure it in a bit different way, so it's maybe more easy to explain to someone else, etc. But essence is that marketing and branding really starts from the moment that we start talking about the idea. And in to go back to your question, essentially regarding the MVP, it's kind of really hard to there are multiple, like, no startup is equal. Like, we have truly tried to create a process that would be set in stone for every startup, but it's not impossible, but it's really, really hard to do it. Because no startup is the same, right? Some startups are in the idea phase. Some startups are they started with the development. Some startups have sketches. Some startups have wireframes. Some startups have designs. They all come from different industries, they have different customer base, etc. So it's really too hard, or I would say people are losing time to create a tailored process for every startup. The reality is that there are some things that you need to put like a template to be, but allow the imagination to lead the process with every startup, because every startup is unique. So in a sense, to help us and to help founders, we have crafted 2 or 3 packages with startups, different packages depending on like a broader scope. It mostly goes like if they have built MVP or if they haven't built MVP, etc. So for example, for the founders that still don't have MVP, we are basically trying to brainstorm their idea and pickle the brain and lead them through a couple of weeks of brainstorming sessions where we're trying to visualize the idea. We're trying to get some early adopters, potential early adopters of their products, talk with them, validate the idea, validate the problem, and after a few weeks, basically we call that program as a head start. We want them to give them basically better idea of what the product is going to look like, and if that is something that is going to be important for their users that they want to build a product for. So there are, back again to the question, there are multiple answers, there are multiple approaches, but this we call it as a head start, is the most important, I think, because it kind of really, it's 3 to 4 weeks, maybe even sometimes less than 3 weeks, depending on the complexity of the idea. But after that program, basically founders really know, do they want to build it at all? Because that's really important question. Like, everyone thinks, okay, I'm going to build this, but should you build it at all? Like if after 2 weeks we decide that there is no user base for that, don't build it, right? So it's really important question, and we try to get as much answers to our questions as possible during that Head Start program.
I think that's so incredibly important, right? Like, should you do it? Do you want to do it? Do you understand the complexity and what you're doing? Is the scope right? Are the features like, I mean, it's so important. I think, before we started, I said, I came from this world before too, where you'd get these people with ideas, right? Back of the napkin, they're coming to you with this napkin drawing going, hey, I have something I want to do here. And you're like, okay, do you understand exactly what it's going to take? Because there's so many elements that come in to play from tech stack considerations to, like you said, to market and user base to, how the UX UI is going to look and things like that. Maybe, some common pitfalls that you see either from the MVP or scaling from MVP side of things that you've observed. Some of those that you could share with our listeners and our audience.
Yeah, for sure. Like the kind of the from the start, like the first step is to start, and like I saw entrepreneurs and founders that are afraid to start because all of these, like you're going to need to invest a lot of money, you're going to need to invest a lot of time, you're going to need to do this and that, and the startups are hard, but their users, the founders should start. That is the key, right? The first obstacle that founders have is the fear of starting, and that fear needs to be gone. Like they need to start and take that leap and start seriously thinking about the idea and testing it out. And that is the first kind of, I would say that the first step or first burden is that fear of starting. After they start, basically I being a founder myself, an entrepreneur, and I built a couple of my own startups, it's you always get that drive to, like, I want it all. Like, like over the night, today I have an idea, tomorrow I decided to start, and the day after tomorrow I want everything to be built. I want all of the functionalities, all of the features, etc. But that is the second, I would say, pitfall, is that where you want to build everything right away. The reality is that you should build as small as possible, and that mantra has been there all over a few years, I would say maybe decades, but that is truly the right way to go, right? scale it down, like prioritize the most important functionalities, build it out, test it with your closest audience, like early adopters of the products. If you get that thumbs up for your product, that's awesome. If someone subscribes to your product before you build it, that's like a totally clear sign that there is something in your idea. But lower the ego. We need as founders to lower the ego and kind of listen to what the audience said. And if they want to build something else, like pivot, like Instagram pivoted from the start. Like they first wanted to build bourbon, like a totally different product, and then they pivoted to Instagram. And look where it got. A lot of these famous startups basically are famous products now. They're not startups, but they pivoted, and that was the core success. And in order to pivot, we as the founders, we need to lower the ego, right? We all have great ideas, but along the way, we are going to need to pivot and change something. And that is the most important, because I always say, like, founder is not building product for themselves. Founder is building product for your users, and listen what they say and then build it according to that, and not by your ego. So I would say that is the biggest pitfall, is our ego, right?
I love that. That is so important to remember, have that customer centric approach and make sure you're listening, right? Because so many people we hear from founders that are, I wanted to found this because this is my passion. So first of all, they move into something and now they're not even developing their passion anymore because they're running a business, which was not their passion in the first place, exactly. Right? And then second of all, they're so dedicated to this idea of their passion or what they want to do that even if people are like, boy, it'd be great if it could do this, it's like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that though. We're doing this and that's the end of it. Like you said, this ego gets in the way. If I've already got the great idea, I don't want to pivot away from it and do that. That's so incredibly important. And when we're talking about this scaling from MVP to product, or into MVP and then MVP to product, time to market is crucial, right? That's got to be one of the highest factors here. But also, as you mentioned, quality is important. Making sure you're listening and putting out there what people want is important. How do you find the balance between quickly iterating on an MVP and ensuring that final product meets the high quality standards? And I think you kind of touched on this with that kind of the Head Start program that you were talking about there, but also other factors come into play in your mind.
It's really kind of simple but complex. The simple question but complex answer, because it's if I always say, like, if you want to foresee the future, you need to see the past and see how everything went, right? And knowing when it's good time to market your product, it's I wouldn't say impossible. It's not impossible, but it's really hard to do. Like, and I can bet that many more products fail because they waited for the time to market too long. More of them fail because of that, rather than basically they push the market too early or something like that. So in my opinion, like, we should always try to push as soon as possible and get some sort of feedback and get some sort of response. Because even in the data, like when we push our MVP product live and it's then basically available to all wide audience, if we put the important KPIs and the important metrics in the product, and we basically fully are focused on that North Star metric that we have, I bet that should share us more insight into the market and when to push marketing activities, when to push product upgrades or something like that. Rather than waiting for a product, we're waiting for the MVP to be published. So as I said, like, I'm taking Instagram as an example, but any other startup, basically, if you watch retroactively, that they succeeded because they published the product at a specific point in time that proved to be successful. That is really true. However, the real question is, did they know that product, that is the right time to market that product? I bet that majority will say they didn't know. They just got the response, positive reactions from the audience, and they just went for it, right? So right. It's instead of trying to wait for that perfect moment, let's focus on product and getting it out there as soon as possible and getting the feedback on it. This would be basically my take on that.
Perfect. And we kind of touched on a little bit earlier when we were talking about all of the pieces that go into this, and I think for a lot of our listeners, tech stack considerations are probably one of the very key things that come into play, right? Because it's huge in product development. And, at Scale Up, you help founders make these really informed decisions on, what tech stack is best for their MVPs, and considering scalability and future growth in mind. For people that are, overwhelmed with this a little bit, help shed a little bit of light on that decision-making process and how you can be, I guess, as prepared as possible with the right tech stack.
Yeah, good question. Like we have two things. Scale Up, we're trying to be industry agnostic, meaning that basically we are trying to build products for all of the industries. And the second thing is that we are technology agnostic. When I say that, it's more like we can use majority of technologies out there. But the question is, with what kind of technology is appropriate for with what kind of product, right? Using it to go back to that program that we have, like Head Start. Big part of that program is aligning reading the business goals, reading the MVP functionalities, understanding what is there to be built, what is there to be built in next iterations of the product as well, is the key in multiple ways. Like first is basically of getting that feedback from the users that we talked about, but the second aspect is it sheds a lot of light on what kind of technologies we will need to incorporate in that product. Because if we understand what we want to build once we start, if we understand what kind of functionalities we can expect in a year or two, it gives us great idea of what kind of technology we can use in order to build a product. So again, it's correlated to that Head Start program, like because we really use that to identify the key technology for founders, and I would say that it shouldn't be a burden for them, and they shouldn't hassle too much about the technology that they're going to use, because it's at the stage when product starts or when the development starts. Mostly it's about speed, unless it's real innovation product. There needs to be clear difference there. But for majority of startups, it's just a moment of starting the product and building the product rather than choosing the right technology. Because at that point, it's important to build quickly, get the feedback, and then if feedback is positive, at that point, basically we can even redo the architecture of the product or something like that. There is a term called over engineering, and that's really important because we don't want to over engineer startups. We can build this product that can sustain millions of users, concurrent users from the start, tens of thousands of them concurrently, basically. But should we do it when we start building a product? Probably not, because we don't know if it's going to have 10 users or 100 users. So that term is really important. It's over engineering. So the key thing is that we don't want to over engineer. We want to build something quickly, get the feedback if it's going to be used, if it gets traction, create some as accurate as possible forecast, and then upgrade the architecture how needed. Right.
Amazing. We've covered so much already in terms of, the successes and the pitfalls, what's going to make you successful in the MVP and scaling process, balancing of speed and quality, that iterative development process that you mentioned, the tech stack considerations, making sure it's all there. I think one of the best things that you do with Scale Up and, just overall is around the collaboration as well. So partnering companies and making sure you're collaborating between founders in those companies. Around that, how does this collaborative ecosystem really contribute to the success of turning MVPs into full scale products? And, what roles do these external partnerships play in the success plan?
I mean, their role is key role. Like when I say collaborative, it's more like, obviously building product is something that needs to be done by founders in its core, and all of the ideas and everything needs to be validated by founders in a way that, because they own the product, that it is their product, they need to know what their product do and what kind of functionality is going to have. In that way, it's really important to find that silver lining in engaging them as founders as much as possible, but not to overwhelm them with a number of meetings, right? because it's they have a lot to do in their daily activities, right? So what we are trying to do is we are trying to keep meetings minimalistic, but yet be super focused on what we are building and what we have built. So in an hour or two every 2 weeks, basically we are trying to make that as a collaborative session where basically we are showing what was built, what we are going to build in the next few weeks, etc. So that collaboration with founders, I would say that it's key to, and it's really important to keep it as minimum as possible to get the highest outcome, right? I always love the Pareto rule, like, you know, I'm bad, like if you have a lot of meetings, that in 20% of those meetings it's 80% of the value is the rest of 80% of the meetings are just wasted. And I'm fully with that. So we are trying to be as minimalistic as possible, but keeping that collaboration on high level. And the other aspect of collaboration is something that's really important in our world, in startup world, that is networking, right? And it's often neglected, you know, like we have founders that have big networks, we have founders that have small networks. Those with big networks are usually the ones that have higher chances of success.
Yeah.
And what we are trying to do is we're trying to open our own network to startups that we are working with, and finding the experts they need from their industry in smallest amount of time as possible, and connect them with startup founders as well. And I think that really is key as well, like connecting the startups with the right individuals, right companies from the industry. So basically, we maximize or increase the chances of the startup success. And that is that second aspect of collaborative product development, because we need to include all of the stakeholders and introduce founders to important stakeholders in order to make that product a success.
That's just so perfectly well said. I absolutely love that. You know, how networking is just such a key point of success, and we've had a couple discussions about that on our podcast before, and that's something that just keeps coming back, is making sure that, you know, big part of this roadmap and this journey is being connected, having the right people, being able to talk to the right people, you know, people like yourself as well, right? So just kind of, I think, as a closing comment here, as we're coming to the end, based on your experience, you know, that last piece of wisdom, of advice for tech founders who have either, you know, successfully launched an MVP and are now looking to scale it to a full-fledged product, and just a little bit about, you know, that point. I think you drew up really well, you know, about you got to know where you're at, and I think we understand that portion of it, right? If you're trying to get somewhere on a map destination, you know where you're going, but you don't know where you're starting, a map is useless, right? So that head start's going to help you a ton for that. But maybe that last piece of you've launched that successful MVP and you're looking to scale it now into that full-fledged product. What's that hurdle, and a little bit of advice from you there?
Yeah, like the overall advice is never give up. I mean, that's definitely the all advice for startup and business in general. You know, like uh having my own startups before, the reason why they failed is because I, as a founder, gave up. And looking on into that retrospectively, I gave up at the point where basically, if you look that curve of startups, you know, like it goes up. You're super excited about startup when you have an idea, when you start talking with people, getting that positive reactions. Then you start building that and start working on it. Essentially, every product is hard, and then it goes down, you know, like it goes really down. At that point, when it goes down, it's really important to gather as much feedback as possible, get as much information as possible, and then start implementing that feedback into your product, and it basically goes up. And the moment when I failed with my two startups, when I gave up, essentially it was on the lower end of that curve. You know, like when I got all of the information, I just needed to implement all of the feedback that I got, and at that moment, the startup would basically start gradually to rise and start increasing revenue and everything. So definitely, regardless of the position, regardless of the stage, it's never give up, and never give up in believing in the startup, in believing in your success primarily, not in the idea of your product, because you shouldn't be stubborn about your idea. You should pivot if there isn't a chance to pivot. If market says, if users say pivot, then pivot, but never stop believing in yourself and that you're going to succeed. And that is, I think, the core. regardless if you're in pre-MVP, if you're in MVP, if you're post-MVP, if you're raising Series A, raising Series B, or pre-seed, regardless, like never give up. That is the core throughout the duration of your startup. And for that scaling up, like it's the thing is, like whenever you have a big milestone with your startup, you think, okay, I know it all, like at the moment, like you have an idea. Before you have an idea, you feel you don't have idea. You're either stupid or you're not innovative or something like that. But then you get an idea and you think, oh my god, I'm a genius, I have an idea. And then it comes to building your product and you realize, okay, I don't know anything about that. And then you think for yourself, I'm stupid, etc. And then you build your product and you're thinking, awesome, I built a product, I'm genius. And then you get 0 users in your first weekend, and if you think about, oh, I'm stupid. And then you get your first 1,000 users and you think I'm genius. And it's really a roller coaster. So it's same as post MVP. You build a product that's awesome, but that is really the start of your journey. So if you worked really hard before that, now you need to work even harder. Not harder, maybe smarter. That is the right word. I always say work smarter rather harder. And always along the way, prioritize objectives. Like once you did build MVP, your focus is going to shift largely than it was pre-MVP. Like pre-MVP, it was prioritization of functionalities and everything. After the MVP, the nature of your work as a founder changes. Then now you need to listen to the people, listen to the feedback that you get. You need to talk about maybe upgrading architecture, etc. So regardless if you're post MVP or release 2 or release 3 or release 4, you need to understand that priorities are shifting and that your focus as a founder shifts based on the moment where you are with your startup. So I would say that is the key. Like prioritize smartly, and work smarter after you build a product, because priorities are shifting. You just need to sit back and basically decide what is your priority for next week, next month, next year, etc. And then double down on that. Neglect other things. Delegate as much as you can. But focus on those core aspects of your business and core things that you think are going to succeed. Also, one good advice is kind of I read it in somewhere, but there are 2 things that you can do. You need to define what things to avoid and what things to focus, right? In order to do that, one good strategy is thinking about the end road, like your product succeeded. And if you imagine yourself in the moment where your product succeeded, imagine yourself what kind of steps led you to succeeding to that product. I bet that no one is going to say it was the color of my logo, or it was the whether I included Google sign in or not. It's you're going to define really important tasks that are going to lead to the success of your product. And another exercise is imagining that your product failed. What steps basically led to failing your product? And if you really think about that, you're going to come up with an awesome ideas, and it's really awesome exercise for any business. And I would say that at that point, you think about those 2, and then you can easily prioritize what kind of tasks to do, what not to do.
Incredible. I think this is an episode that people are going to listen to more than once, because they're going to go, okay, I got to get all these notes down and these thoughts. I think that's just an incredible exercise to close on. Like you said, they're just give that look of, if you kind of, use that crystal ball, put yourself out there in the future, what made you succeed or what made you fail, and don't get hung up on the stuff that doesn't matter, that you feel like does, right? I think a lot of people get hung up on the stuff they like doing, right? Because it's easy. They want to do the easy stuff, or they want to, well, the name is, or like you said, the logo's so important. Really not that important, like in the grand scheme of things, right? Like if you look back, and I bet you when they launched people with Google, what a weird word, right? Like no one's going to catch on to something like that, right? Now it's a verb, and it's what we do, right? So exactly. I think with that's Adi, I think that's an incredible place for us to close off. But before we completely sign off, it's scaleup.ba, but give us a little bit of information of where we can get in contact with you, because I know there's going to be listeners that are hearing this that are saying, boy, this is exactly someone I need to get in touch with and kind of and get connected to.
Yeah, I would say like website, or but the I'm always on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is really my network. So I'm always there. I'm always posting something and talking with people, etc. So if someone wants to reach out, I would say definitely it's LinkedIn.
Perfect. Well, there it is. So make sure you reach out on LinkedIn, check out scaleup.ba, get all the information you're looking for, and really take that again. Whether you're working towards that MVP and you're just spinning tires, or you're not even sure where to get kicked off, or if you're in that incredibly challenging part of scaling from MVP to a product, Adi's the person for us. So with that, I want to take a minute here to thank Adi Behlulovic for this amazing podcast, From Concept to Scale, unveiling the art of MVP transformation and helping me, start to learn a new language. Here we go. Am I getting even closer with the name each time I say it as we're going further on?
Awesome, Ryan. Yeah, definitely. One step closer, and you're a fast learner. Definitely.
Wonderful.
You're
Well, you know
half
what?
Bosnian now, man.
I think we're gonna have you back so I can continue to practice the name more and more, and so you can continue to help us, help our listeners with more of the things that they're looking for. Because I think you're an incredible wealth of knowledge. So thank you, Adi, for being here. Really, really happy you were able to join us today.
It was my pleasure, man. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Ryan.
And I want to thank our listeners as well. As always, we can't do what we do without you. So until we meet again with another amazing TBR episode, I'm your host, Ryan Davies. Take care, everybody.